Aeneas was a different kind of hero. Let me ask you something. Have you ever done the right thing, but hated every second of it? Like your head kept telling you, keep moving forward, but your heart was still sitting on the floor, refusing to put its shoes on? These are usually moments that you have to tell yourself, this is the best thing for me, even though you're not quite ready to accept it yet. Maybe it was a relationship. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe it was a version of yourself that you had to outgrow. Today, we are going to talk about one of mythology's greatest experts in that exact experience, Aeneas. And this poor guy spends almost his entire story looking over his shoulder. He is the hero who teaches us how to move forward even when our hearts are living in the past. So, settle in, fellow mages, because today we are wandering into one of the most painfully human stories in all of Greek mythology. Let's get into it. Welcome back, fellow mages, to the Grounded Mage, where we explore how myth and magic exist in everyday life. When people think of Greek heroes, they often think of Achilles, the warrior, the legend, the human tank with anger issues, or Odysseus, the clever guy who could probably talk his way out of a dragon's stomach. But Aeneas doesn't get nearly as much attention. And that's a shame because, unlike many heroes, Aeneas isn't trying to win glory. He's trying to survive the grieving process. His story begins during the fall of Troy. Everything is burning, the city is collapsing, the war is lost, and Aeneas is forced to flee. Now, just imagine that for a second. Your home, your memories, your community, everything you have ever known, gone in basically an instant. And all you can do is leave. Already, we are dealing with something psychology understands surprisingly well. Researchers have found that major life transitions often create what psychologists call ambiguous loss. Pauline Boss developed this concept to describe losses that don't have clean endings. The relationship ended, but you still think about them. You moved away, but part of you still lives there. The dream died, but the feelings, they never got the memo. Aeneas isn't just losing a city, he's losing an identity. Who is he if Troy no longer exists? And if you've ever asked yourself, who am I when this chapter is over? Congratulations. You have accidentally joined Aeneas on his quest. So, a little background on Aeneas before I get too far ahead in this episode. Aeneas is the son of the Greek goddess Aphrodite and the Trojan prince Anchises. In Homer's Iliad, he's actually recognized as Troy's greatest warrior after Hector, who was a huge part of the war between the Greeks and the Trojans, but longer story, maybe another time. When Troy falls, Aeneas leads a group of refugees to safety with a lot of obstacles along the way. Through much of his journey, he has to face choices, much like Dumbledore would say, between the things that are right and the things that are easy. If you want a deeper dive into the entire story, let me know in a comment and I can put one together for an episode in season 3. Anyway, one of the most famous images from mythology is Aeneas carrying his elderly father Anchises over his shoulder while fleeing Troy. It's heroic, it's noble, it's also a fantastic metaphor. Because isn't that something that we all do? Carry our past with us? Our family stories, our regrets, our successes, our old wounds, the things we wish we'd said, the things we wish we'd never said. Some days it feels like carrying wisdom, sometimes it's more like hauling around emotional furniture. Psychologist Dan McAdams talks about the idea of narrative identity. This is the story we tell ourselves about who we are. We don't just remember events, we create meaning from them. Aeneas spends much of his journey trying to figure out how Troy fits into the story he's writing. And maybe that's worth asking ourselves. When you think about your past, are you carrying it as a burden or integrating it as part of your story? What chapter of your life do you still relive the most? And is it helping you move forward, or is it keeping you stuck in the past? So, the Trojans lose the war. Aeneas carries his elderly father on his back while fleeing a burning city. Everyone has lost everything. And then the story gets worse. We have to talk about one of mythology's greatest heartbreaks here. Aeneas arrives in Carthage. Everything is finally looking up. There's safety, comfort, a future, and then there's Queen Dido. And these two, uh, they fall in love. And to Hollywood, this would be the perfect ending. Credits would roll, everybody's happy, the grounded mage goes home early. Fantastic. Except that is absolutely not what happens. Because Aeneas receives a reminder from those pesky gods about his actual mission. He's supposed to continue his journey to Italy. He's supposed to build something bigger. So he leaves. He tells Anna, Dido's sister, to prepare a pyre on which the bed they slept in will burn. And Dido is devastated. She actually rages at him as he's leaving. Aeneas is also devastated. And he ends up having to carry something more than that with him because soon after he's gone, Dido unalives herself. Everyone is devastated. Nobody gets a trophy, nobody gets closure. It's just painful. And that's exactly why this story resonates. Because sometimes the hardest decisions aren't choosing between good and bad, they're choosing between two good things. Psychologists call this an approach conflict. Both options have value, both options matter, both options cost something. Aeneas must choose between the life he wants right now and the future he feels called toward. Have you ever experienced something like that? A path that feels comfortable versus one that felt meaningful? A choice where neither answer felt totally right? If you have experienced that, think about which path you chose and how it affected you. Because often those are the decisions that shape us the most. Here's a fun fact for you. Neuroscience suggests that emotional pain activates some of the same regions of the brain involved in physical pain. In other words, your brain doesn't entirely distinguish between I broke my leg and my heart is broken. No wonder moving on feels exhausting. No wonder grief can make your whole body tired. No wonder Aeneas spent half his journey emotionally exhausted. This man isn't weak, he's just grieving. And grief isn't a sign that you're moving backwards, it's often a sign that something mattered. If there's something you've struggled to let go of, what does your sadness reveal about what was important to you? What value was hidden in that loss? You would be surprised what you can learn from the things you've let go of. One of the biggest misconceptions about healing is that acceptance means not caring anymore. It doesn't. Acceptance means learning to carry the reality of something. It appears often in acceptance and commitment therapy, which is often called ACT. ACT teaches that meaningful living isn't about eliminating pain. It's about continuing to move toward your values, even though pain is coming along for the ride. In my opinion, Aeneas is the patron saint of ACT. He doesn't stop loving Troy. He doesn't stop missing what he's lost. He doesn't suddenly become emotionally bulletproof. He simply keeps walking. One step, then another, then another. Sometimes growth looks incredibly unglamorous. It's not a motivational montage. It's answering one email, going to one appointment, taking one small step, because somehow that is enough. What is one small step forward you've been postponing because part of you is still looking behind you? Psychologist Viktor Frankl believed that humans can endure tremendous suffering when they connect it to meaning. not happiness, not comfort, meaning. That is exactly what drives Aeneas. His journey isn't easy. In fact, it's often miserable. There are storms, losses, wars, heartbreak, enough emotional damage to keep a therapist employed for decades. But he continues because he believes his suffering serves something larger than himself. Meaning acts like a compass. Without it, every obstacle seems pointless. With it, obstacles just become part of the path. What future are you building that might be worth today's suffering? What purpose helps you keep moving when motivation disappears? Most hero stories teach us how to fight. Aeneas teaches us how to leave. And maybe that's the harder skill. Anyone can dream about the future, but moving toward it often requires grieving what cannot come with you. Old identities, old expectations, old chapters, old versions of yourself. Aeneas reminds us that courage isn't always charging into battle. Sometimes courage is boarding the ship. Sometimes courage is saying goodbye. Sometimes courage is taking the next step while your heart is still catching up. And maybe that's where you find yourself today. Part of you is looking forward, part of you is looking backward. Part of you knows exactly what needs to happen. Part of you is wishing it didn't. If so, welcome to the club. Aeneas would definitely understand. So, here's the question I want you to sit with this week. What are you carrying from your past that deserves to be honored but shouldn't steer the ship? Because that's the balance Aeneas teaches us. Remember, grieve, honor, learn, but keep moving. The future doesn't require you to forget where you've been. It just asks that you don't live there. Thanks for listening. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who may be navigating a difficult transition of their own. And if you're looking for a practical way to explore your own journey, don't forget to check out the Grounded Mage's Hero's Journey Journal. It is designed to help you reflect on your challenges, discover patterns in your story, and uncover the lessons hidden within your own adventure. Every hero needs a map because they're not always entirely sure where they're going. There is a link to a freebie preview in the description down below, and if you enjoy that, you can also purchase it using the links in the description down below as well. We have 2 episodes left of this season, mages, and next week we are diving into the world of Geralt from The Witcher. We'll explore emotional detachment, loneliness, belonging, and why some people convince themselves they don't need others when they're actually starving for connection. Trust me, toss a coin to your therapist. You are not going to want to miss that one. Until next week, fellow mages, make it make magic.